right, welcome everyone. This is SIG Windows weekly meeting. It is March 5th, 2024. We are a CNCF project, and so we follow CNCF code of conduct. That boils down to being nice and kind and being respectful to everyone. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to some of the leads. And so, yeah, we'll go ahead and get started today after a little bit of technical difficulties, so sorry about that. Just quickly, announcements. Today is code freeze, so if you have a PR that you need merged, please reach out to folks and try to get that in. Also, ping folks, and if you think it's important enough, there's code freeze exceptions that we can put in. So yeah, and then we'll take a moment. Is there any other announcements people want to mention?
I have one announcement. We did KCD Brazil, São Paulo, and I present a workshop about, I should announce this before, but I present a workshop about SIG Windows and Kubernetes contribution. It's a Portuguese presentation, but as soon as the recordings are available, I'll post here the link.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, cool. And then pause for new contributors. I think everyone on here has been here before, so okay. And then yeah, we can get onto the agenda. I think the one thing we were discussing right before we started recording was the Windows key proxy, but does anybody else have anything else they wanted to bring up today that we can add to the end of the agenda? Cool. So I guess I can set the stage and then I'll hand it to Claudio for a little bit further. But so we have with host process containers, we can now build a Windows kube proxy image. And there's a couple of different efforts that are happening here in this regards. And one of the ones that Claudio is working on is getting the Windows kube proxy built in tree and part of the Kubernetes release cycle. So we were talking about what would need to happen with this PR and what are kind of the next steps for that PR. And so, Claudio, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, sure. It's a PR I did a while ago, but this came up recently again this year, a couple of weeks back during the SIG Windows meeting. So I basically presumed the efforts on this. There were some issues because of which we didn't really finish up this pull request itself. This pull request is fine. It's working, and I also built an image and pushed it to Docker Hub, basically. Which that's probably fine. But the thing is that Kubernetes has a quite weird release process, which basically meant it was a bit more difficult to actually include the Windows kube proxy image into the official releases. So for other images that we have previously added Windows support, like the pause image or etcd or test images and so on, we are basically using Docker buildx to build the images and push them to a registry. We are still using Docker buildx to build images, that's fine, but how the release process is being done here, they are saved into tar files. Those are also being used in the CI, I think, because those basically are being built locally, and then I think the images are then loaded and run in the test jobs themselves. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's why the current pull request jobs are failing. So that's probably why. But basically, it saves the images into tars, and then when it comes to the release process itself, when the release time comes, there is the release process in github.com/kubernetes/release, which basically receives a parameter to the folder in which those images are being built, those tar files, which are basically the images. And what happens there? Basically, those images are being loaded into Docker with Docker load or whatever, and then tagged and pushed. Now that will be fine, but you cannot load Windows images in regular Docker, which basically means that you cannot simply use the same release method as Linux images. Basically, you can still do Docker import, but what happens in that case? The Windows kubeproxy image would be treated as a Linux image, which would not really be correct. But instead, what I ended up using is Crane, basically, which simply allowed me to just point to the tar file and specify the tags that I want them to be published as. And that seemed to have worked fine. This is basically the image which was built using that pull request and using Crane to publish the tar itself. So that's basically the current idea. Now, we discussed, James and I discussed regarding the kubeproxy image and the Docker file. I think the idea is to use the Docker file in Windows Service Proxy repository, right?
Yeah, so that's where I was gonna do this before
Mhm.
you kind of did this great work here. So and the Docker file is super simple. It's using that base image, and then it just copies the executable. And what's nice about that is it lets you be able to use kubeproxy just as the executable and pass any parameters you want. And
But
so
I do
yeah.
have a question for that though. I see in that repository there are two Docker files, Dockerfile and Dockerfile.source_vip. Which exactly are we supposed to
Yeah,
use?
yeah. So just the initial Docker file. So the
Hmm.
other source BIP one is something that is also being fixed by Tatienda. And
Mhm.
so essentially, if you're using overlay or VXLAN in um, Windows, you need to set up your source BIP before you start kubeproxy, and that requires like customization from a um, CNI perspective. And so, we need this special thing that does all this work before you can start kubeproxy, and we're and so that's what that file does, is it provides that for you, and it only injects it into kubeproxy if it's required. That's what the Helm chart kind of does in that repository. And then eventually, with the work that Tatiana is working on, is we can eventually get rid of that file, because it's not really, it shouldn't be needed, because kubeproxy shouldn't be dependent on the type of CNI that you have. And so, yeah, we're working on that as well. So.
Cool. Then yeah, I'll just use the Docker file you mentioned, so that's fine. I think there's only one or two changes which have to be made. Basically, the entry point has to be changed from what I can see. Other than that, it's pretty much the same thing that mm, I'm already using in the pull request I mentioned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll make those changes and rebuild the images and publish it again with Crane. After that, I would actually like uh, I would like some help with testing the image itself. So if anyone wants to give a helping hand with that, basically we'll just try to use the image, see that everything works fine as intended. Basically, kubeproxy works fine. There's no issue with it. If that is going to be so, and there's no issue, I think we can just go ahead with the pull request, and I will then have to propose a change for Kubernetes/release to use Crane for pushing the images instead of just Docker. Shouldn't be a very difficult change to do. It's basically a couple of hours of work, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. And I think that's gonna also simplify a lot of places, because I think we have a few Docker files spread around the world for kubeproxy for Windows.
Yeah.
So
I think between this change, the stuff that Tatiana is working on, yeah, we should have a nice solution. For testing, we can run this through the CapZ
oh, cool.
end suite, because we use a host process proxy there for all the testing. So,
Awesome.
if-
Yeah.
I have one question about that. So
Hmm.
what's who's responsible to publish this on the registry, and is that a way like that we tell people, okay, this is the official kubeproxy image from the registry? What's the outcome of this entire flow?
So the binaries are already being published by Kubernetes, which is where we're actually getting the binaries which we include into the container images we are currently publishing in the first place. The only thing that we're adding new is also including the container images for kubeproxy Windows. So it will still be done by the Kubernetes community whenever they publish the images for whatever control plane images that they are publishing. So it wouldn't we there wouldn't be a huge change, because basically in the release process it's basically just listing all the star .tar files in the release images folder. So that's going to be included automatically when we're actually going to build it as well. I'm not exactly sure I answered your question though. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, no, I think that's it.
Yeah, the Kubernetes release team will essentially release the kubeproxy Windows image as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think for anybody that's using like host process containers or wants to use host process containers for kubeproxy, this makes like kubeadm workflows easier. I know that the Calico folks did their stuff with HPC and they point kind of to our many different types of kubeproxies right now, and it would be nice to just point to the official one. And so I think that makes it just simpler to get started with this. But you could, I think, and for folks who are already using a binary and have their entire workflow there, that I think that still would remain a valid way of deploying kubeproxy if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and another benefit is the fact that we wouldn't have to build those images ourselves. It would be done automatically on every Kubernetes release. So that part would be automated.
Nice.
Yeah. Hopefully it goes well. Yep, that's pretty much the bits that I wanted to raise.
Cool. Yeah, once you have a make those changes, you want to share it, I can test it out.
Yep. Cool. Well, yeah, we'll let you know.
Cool. So we're coming towards the end of the meeting, and we got started a little late. Is there anything else people wanted to chat about or want to bring up? All right. If not, then we will see you all next week. Have a good one, everyone.
All right. Bye, folks.
Bye.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.